private sector about 3 or 4 months ago. I want to begin with a very fundamental concept about the United States approach to entrepreneurship, which is the most important concept to keep in mind is the private sector is the engine of entrepreneurship. Those of us in the federal government, our job is to create the conditions for innovators to thrive. So in fact, government support for entrepreneurship in the United States dates back to our founding. Our Constitution, for example, laid the groundwork for a patent system, which is now part of the Commerce Department, which I lead. Our very first president, George Washington, signed the very first patent in 1790. The patent was for an ingredient, a chemical that went into soap and glass. Then there were only 3 patents given in that first year. Today, last year, we granted 277,000 patents, over half of which were to people outside of the United States. So as someone who's launched 5 companies, sat on the board, I've sat on the board of many others, I know firsthand that protecting ideas is critical to supporting a strong ecosystem of entrepreneurship. So I want to highlight 4 ways that the United States supports a vibrant culture of entrepreneurship. First, it may sound counterintuitive, but we allow our entrepreneurs to fail and to try again. For example, in 1898, our Congress passed the very first bankruptcy law, laws that have evolved but that exist today. So it's critical to the innovative process is a stable legal structure that supports new success but is not overly punitive for failure. These laws help foster an overall environment where entrepreneurs can take risks without fear and without major penalty. So for example, let's take one of our greatest innovators, Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple, the company he co-founded, but he was later brought back in with the opportunity to try again. And he led, and unfortunately he's passed away, a global electronics revolution that has created jobs all over the world. So many entrepreneurs in the Silicon Valley and throughout the U.S. are very proud of their failures because they learned from those moments. They refined their ideas, and later they found greater success. So lesson 1 here is it's critical for society to minimize stigma and penalty for innovators who fail and inventors who fail. After all, an entrepreneur who failed could well be your next in any one of your countries, your next Steve Jobs. The second thing our federal government does is we invest significantly in research and development. It's clear, a clear example of this is the United States invested in our United States Defense Department invested in the 1960s to create the building blocks that became the internet. No private company alone could have done that. It was impossible. Thus, after decades of R&D investment across many federal agencies and universities, the private sector harnessed the internet's potential starting in the 1990s, and that revolution continues. So today, many of our university researchers receive federal funding as a waiver. For example, at Stanford, the university that I attended, they now rely 2/3 of their R&D dollars come from the federal government. So in fact, we also, at Stanford, the president of the university sits on the board of Google, which reflects the importance of public-private engagement in promoting cutting-edge ideas. Public funds are also used to support incubators and accelerators across the country. I was recently in Nashville and New Orleans. In both of those cities, the Commerce Department has partnered with local NGOs to create centers where entrepreneurs can test their ideas, develop business plans, find mentors, and seek funding. So lesson number 2 is an entrepreneurial culture requires a broad foundation of support for R&D and for institutions that serve as fertile grounds for startups. Third thing to keep in mind is our government supports creative financing of small businesses and startups. We enable partnerships that share financial risk. So through our U.S. Small Business Administration, we partner with private banks. to partially guarantee many small business loans. So if that company or that idea were to fail, it doesn't bankrupt the bank as well. And in fact, that institution was incredibly critical during the credit crisis that we talked about in funding. It was a lifeline for tens of thousands of entrepreneurs and small businesses during the financial crisis. Another way that we supported financing was just in the last year. We passed something called the Jobs Act. This act not only removed hurdles for small businesses to access the public markets, but it also allowed more entrepreneurs to track funding through crowdsourcing, and it eased the regulatory environment for them. So lesson number 3 is it's important for the government to find ways to widen the pipeline for financing for startups and small businesses. So fourth and finally, one of the things I learned in business is the importance of collaboration. In the United States, we were able to share best practices with each other. So that allowed us to go from taking the experiences of Silicon Valley that led to the creation of Silicon Alley in New York City and Silicon Flatirons in Colorado. And I'm thrilled that what today was announced, we're taking that approach to the next level. So as we heard this morning, President Obama is launching his Committee on Global Entrepreneurship, which I'm honored to chair. And through that, we're going to top some of America's top entrepreneurs to work with communities all over the world. And they're going to share best ideas for increasing entrepreneurship, drawing on their firsthand knowledge. So simply put, the ideas are very basic one. America has very remarkable entrepreneurs, and we can, all of us, benefit learning from them as those leaders engage and share what they've learned. And also, one thing I'm absolutely sure of is that great entrepreneurs will also learn from all of the 4,000 attendees here. So it's that collaboration that is so important. So in summary, I think that the public sector and the private sector have to work together to create an ecosystem where success is rewarded and bold experimentation is encouraged without penalizing failure, and where new ideas can flourish into new products and new industries.
Thank you, Secretary Pritzker. We'd like to know later what challenges